Oops, didn't see there. Sorry for the jump scare. If I told you that this 4th gen 4Runner that is regarded as one of the most reliable vehicles ever with one of the best V8 engines that Toyota's ever made, what if I told you that it could actually have some repairs in there that's going to cost you thousands of dollars? You might not believe me, but in today's video, I'm going to walk through 4 main points you should look out for when buying a 4th gen 4Runner. Now, some of this is going to apply to all 4Runners as a whole, but there are some specific repairs that you have to deal with on this rig that could be used as negotiating power when you go out and buy one, or could save you from buying one that is going to be a bad egg in general. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today before you go out and purchase one. If you already bought one with one of these issues, have fun, man. So let's get into it. This is especially applicable to this one because this is now a 20-year-old vehicle. So this is going to apply heavily to the 4th gen. This is actually overarching to all 4Runners. It's going to be the issue of rust. Here's what I have to say on rust. Live in California. Find a California or Southern state vehicle. If you live up in the Northeast and there's no sort of history of the prior owner putting on any sort of wool wax or whatever product you want to throw on there, fluid film, all that stuff is rust preventative. And if you don't put that on and you live in a state like Ohio, kind of nasty, what's going to happen is your frame is going to rot from the inside out. Now, this is a box frame design. Anytime salt gets trapped on the inside, it's going to naturally create rust. So those salt states and the salt belt, just in general, if you can avoid buying one from one of those states, do it. Don't get a frame that has the same color of a churro that looks like it's made of paper mache and it's about to break off. There's so many videos and footage of people buying rusted out frames, and it gives me the hives. I hate it. It's one of the biggest things to avoid with these vehicles. Do not buy a rusty 4Runner. Crawl underneath it, shove a camera in there. I don't even know if we're still talking about cars, but just make sure to thoroughly look through this vehicle on the undercarriage to make sure that you're not buying a rust bucket and you don't have a vehicle that's super pretty to look at, but on the underside, it looks awful. That's the first main tip. Okay, cool. So you dodged getting a rust bucket. Hats off to you. Good stuff. Now, the second thing is going to also apply to most 4Runners in general. And this is kind of a general principle with buying used vehicles, but make sure that the transmission oil is something that's been serviced properly. Now, look, doing an oil change every 5,000 miles, sure, that's really important, but the minor details that people kind of miss out. One of them is the transmission oil, and if you don't have any sort of service record with that, this is where it becomes a problem. So with the transmissions on these vehicles, they're made by Aisin, they're really strong and they're good. The problem is that if you leave the oil in the transmission for a long time and it has a lot of time to deteriorate and gather more clutch material, from mechanics that I've spoken to, they've recommended actually not doing a change or a fill or a full flush of the system, because if you move through all that clutch material with completely fresh fluid, you can have a transmission that slips. Now, the odds of it with these strong transmissions is kind of low, but if you go, let's say 100,000 miles plus or 7 years plus without any sort of transmission servicing, you're now just looking at sort of a ticking time bomb. And that's unfortunately what I have with my 4Runner. I've been advised by multiple people, multiple respected places, to actually not do the transmission oil on it. Now, it's going to be a controversial topic, so don't at me for anything because I am not a master Toyota tech, but I have done the research, and a lot of people advise, again, to not even do anything now because it's been so many years since the last transmission oil Did you hear that voice crack? Since the last transmission oil service. So when you look at service records, yeah, sure, oil's obviously a staple. Everyone knows that. That's an easy one. You shouldn't be buying one without oil service. But the transmission oil or even the differential fluid, stuff like that are items where you should be keen on that and use it as negotiating power if you want to take a gamble and buy one. So transmission oil, make sure that's been done within the past, let's say 60,000-ish miles. And if it's above 100,000 miles, walk away or use it as negotiating power. All right, now I want to get specific now. These next ones are going to be more towards the 4th gen 4Runner. I love this generation. I've had it for the past 5 years. I plan on running this thing until it hits 300,000 plus miles. That's the goal as of right now. The next couple things I rattle off here are going to be specific to the 2UZ FE engine, the legendary V8 that everyone talks about because it's a badass engine. Come on. I mean, a V8 and a 4Runner, the first thing I say when people ask me about it is, oh yeah, it's a V8. Yeah, just so you know. Yeah, it's a V8. I have that over everyone else in the Toyota community. Yeah, V8 4Runner. Oh, you're just asking my name. Gotcha. That's how much I like this vehicle. Now, the 2UZ-FE, as great of an engine as it is, the main Achilles heel with this engine, that's really just maintenance, is the timing belt. The maintenance of it is super important. There's timing belts and then there's timing chains. Now, most people know chains are usually metal, belts are usually rubber. If the rubber snaps on this belt, and you have an 05 to 09 4Runner, it is an interference engine, meaning it will hurt your engine really bad for the non-technical people out there. So you gotta make sure that you have a sticker that shows when the timing belt was serviced. If there's no history of this, if there's no reference of that, start really leaning onto that for negotiating power with the seller, because that is something that will cause catastrophic damage to your engine. When I did it 5 years ago, it was $1,100 to do, to have it thrown in a shop and just pawn it off to someone else. Use that as negotiating power. And if they do have the service record dates of that, that's a great sign that this person was taking care of their car. The maintenance interval for the timing belt is 90 to 100,000 miles. Now, some people might push that a little bit farther. Some people might push that to 140,000, like when I bought mine. Usually it's okay, but if you buy this, immediately do that. You don't want to buy a new 4Runner just to have it blow up on you and you have to now do a full engine rebuild or slap in a new engine because of this service not being done. Do it yourself, throw it to a shop. I don't care what you do, just make sure you address this if you have the 2UZ-FE engine. Now, you might be thinking like, hey man, these are all really basic stuff. I'm a Toyota guy, I know about those things. Okay, all right, let's dial it up a notch. Let's get really specific on the 2UZ-FE and things that you're not gonna really think about that you're gonna run into, especially if it's a higher mileage vehicle. One of them is going to be the secondary air injection system, or SAIS system. Maybe I'm adding another system at the end of that. But this secondary air injection system on this 4Runner is for 2005 to 2009 models. For the people that don't know what I'm talking about at this point, this is literally an emissions-driven part that's thrown into a really awkward place of your engine under the intake manifold. Very hard to get to, not something where you do it in a casual couple hours. And its whole goal is to have an air pump. So when you're heating up your car and it's cold out, the catalytic converters and your exhaust, everything burns a little bit more efficiently. So it's for emissions, and the cost of just the parts to replace this when it does inevitably fail is $1,800 last time I checked. 2 years ago, I had this issue come up where flaps that open and close based on if it's cold or not, if they want to engage the secondary air injection system, those valves were stuck closed, which is a good condition to have. I don't want to deal with the emissions BS. So what I did was I put on a Hewitt bypass kit to bypass the system, and I only use this in Mexico for legal purposes. The point is that this is a $1,800 in parts type of maintenance that you're gonna have to do on this 4Runner if you buy one of these and you don't have a bypass system or this already replaced. So a couple grand, give or take, probably around $2,500, maybe a little less than that if you were to go to a shop and just pawn it off to someone for labor. It's not cheap. That's a really expensive repair for a freaking emission system that I don't really feel like paying for, but that is something that is specific to this 4Runner. If you buy a 03 to 04 4Runner, you do not have to deal with that because it was before they implemented this whole system. So it doesn't even exist on those engines, which is kind of cool. Maybe it's why you get a 03 or 04, but it's something to definitely keep in mind, because dropping 2 grand on a fan that just shoves air into your catalytic converters helps them burn a little bit cleaner, I guess. That's a tough one, if you ask me. Check if the person who owns the 4Runner implemented a bypass kit or has had that service done in the past. A secondary air injection system. All right, I know I said I have 4, but I'm actually gonna throw in some bonus ones for you because I'm just feeling a little generous today. So if you have the V6 iteration of the 4th Gen 4Runner, 1GR FE engine is the V6. 2003 to 2005, some 05s are okay. Head gaskets are usually a problem. So if you have the capacity to or the ability to do a leak down test and see if the head gaskets are okay or if it's been replaced in the past, make sure to keep that in mind. The other thing that is really fun about these 4Runners is that their brake calipers like to seize. So this goes back to the rust conversation. If you're buying this from a disgusting state like Ohio, totally kidding. Love the East Coast people, or Midwest, wherever you want to call Ohio. If you live in a rust belt state, somewhere a little less than desirable, if you will, make sure to actually scope out the calipers themselves, because I had my caliper, I only lived on the East Coast for a few years with this rig, and my front right caliper seized. Keep that in mind. Pistons sometimes seize in those calipers. You might have to replace that. It's almost always inevitable with a lot of these rigs, especially if you're living outside of a nice state like California where the weather is just great. So keep that in mind. So let's recap. Frame. Don't buy a rusted frame. Just walk away from it. There's plenty of others out there. Transmission. Make sure you have any sort of history on that, or it will become a ticking time bomb at some point. It may go a while, but you never know. Brakes. Make sure the brakes aren't super rusted. You don't want to have seized brakes while you're driving somewhere. The engine, the timing belt, easy. Secondary air injection system, kind of a nightmare. Just see if there's any sort of bypass kit done. See if they've addressed this at some point, because again, $1,800 in parts just about, or over $2,000 if you go to a shop just to pay for an emission system to be up to spec. I hope this was helpful to you guys. The funny part about Toyotas is that they hold their value incredibly well, which is great. But the funny thing about it is that people think, once I get this, I don't have to do anything. I could just do whatever I want to this and it's gonna last and I could beat the hell out of it and nothing's gonna happen. You're wrong. You are wrong. There is stuff to do to these rigs to make sure that they can go 300,000 miles plus. I've recently spent thousands in brakes, in fluids, in other parts just to make sure that this thing keeps going. It's the cost of doing business, unfortunately. But if you look out for those 5-ish things that I threw out there, you should be in good shape to have a rig that's gonna last a very long time, well past 200,000 miles. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think about this type of content, and I will catch you in the next one.